Hello, everyone. It's your favorite Tuesday night stream on Thursday. Welcome to Step Back Tonight. I'm drinking a beverage. That's good beverage. There's a cat already here, as you can see in the back. It's just kind of chilling out. Hey, Phoebes. So we've got all the things. So welcome to Step Back Tonight, the show where I do things and talk about stuff. I just gotta maneuver myself for maximum cat watching positions, and then I will stop looking at myself and start talking to you guys. Hello! Hey everybody! Welcome to Step Back Tonight, a weekly stream I do where I talk to you guys. We're doing a thing where we do we're doing it on Thursday for some reasons we'll get into probably in a sec, but we're doing good stuff. We do a stream. Normally it's on Tuesdays, so this is your first time here. First of all, if this is your first time here, please let yourself be known in the chat so that everyone can say welcome to you. What do you think? Anybody new? Well, if there isn't, then it's just the cool kids, all of us. Anyways, we're having a good time. Gotta get myself a little perked up. All right. So Step Back Tonight is a weekly stream that I do every week, normally on Tuesdays. So if this is your first time here, this is not the normal night. I switched it up because normally, well, how should I say this? Thought Slime's birthday was on Tuesday, so I let him do his own stream on his birthday, and I took over on his regular night. So we're gonna do this stream until probably around 9, so a little under 2 hours now. So that we can go and watch the debates. But in the meantime, you guys got me. A couple personal things I should say. Tomorrow's my last day at the day job, which is fun. I don't know. You know, that means I'll be a full-time YouTuber starting tomorrow at 5 o'clock. That's bananas. The other thing too is that I got like recognized on the subway today. So this has happened to me now twice. I even go to like meetups in Toronto where like it's me, Mexi, and Thought Slime who host the meetup, and even then like most of the people don't know who I am. But like but this time, so like I was, so the first time it happened, I had just gotten this job that I'm now leaving, and I was at an event and setting up my camera and wearing a Step Back t-shirt, and somebody recognized me, a nice young guy. I was very happy to have met him. This time though, I was just on the subway and someone just asked me if I was Tristan from Step Back History, that they like my shit. That was a thing. That's so bananas. Delicious, delicious beverage. Okay. We'll see what happens when the next video comes out. I've been editing the video. I had to do chroma keying for the next Step Back video, and it looks so good, and it's so funny. Was it Jeb? It probably wasn't Jeb. It was a grown-up, and Jeb is 16. Okay. What is the first question? Let's answer you guys' questions. Argos wants to know thoughts on the Donald subreddit getting quarantined. Good. I thought that, you know, that Reddit would never actually get around to doing something about hate groups on their website. But then it happened. So to give you guys a bit of a wrap up, the Donald, the underscore Donald, for the uninitiated, is a pro Donald Trump subreddit on reddit.com. Like other things associated with the Trump, presidential campaign, and also just a very normal sign in general that this is a subreddit that is full of literal like fascists and like blatantly racist propaganda that Reddit felt like it couldn't do anything about, like it could for like all the other messed up subreddits they've taken down, because it was also the Donald Trump subreddit. Isn't it great how like a normal presidential candidate has a subreddit that is basically a hate group, and also wearing the like campaign merchandise hat is now like an act of like racist fascist aggression? That just shows how normal our moment is. Anyways, the subreddit apparently is finally taking down or quarantined the subreddit, and probably will, if history serves right, that is a sign that it's not going to last long and it'll probably get taken down, which is interesting. Because this is a subreddit that, in order to help Donald Trump get elected, like, used to spam things into the top of r/all or whatever, and like turn Twitter into like this horrible place. This is the thing, is like Reddit. I haven't spent a ton of time on Reddit. Like, it's not like my like social media platform of choice, but like that was normally because the place was full of like super right-wing dickheads, and it seems that over the last couple years that started to change. I don't know. I don't know what's on. I don't know what Reddit does anymore. But it'd be. I would love to see Reddit or the Donald as another sign of like the. This is my hope anyway, is that we learned something in the summer of 2017, and that now we're at the point where I think we can start to say, hopefully, who knows, 2020 could bubble up some real ugly shit, but maybe that the high watermark of like this resurgent fascism, at least in America, is it was the Charlottesville, and that now things are going to go the other direction. And a lot of temporary acts of electoral dumbness. Like now, freaking Premier of Ontario, it has like a really low approval rating, and he's like just barely a year into office. So things are going. Makes me happy. I know that someone's saying that it's got something to do with like the fact that they said that they were trying to call for violence against cops, but you know what? I'll take whatever freaking reason the Donald got taken down. And also, I think that it would be completely fine too, because like if the Donald gets taken down, then it will seriously hurt the organization of far-right activism on the internet, but in America in particular. There has been studies now that have shown that when subreddits get taken down, it has a verifiable effect. Because, yeah, some people just go to vote or go to whatever that dumb free speech Twitter is called, or, you know, anything like that. But it cuts down the size of the platform significantly. And so prevents those ideas from spreading. In the case of the Donald, a basically fascist subreddit, that is good. Okay. Is Beto O'Rourke a centrist? Beto being called a centrist is weird to Christie and other liberals. How would you explain Beto's political position? Okay, so is Beto a centrist? I have, what's it called? And next week I'm going to try doing the Beto O'Rourke video, depending upon how he does in the polls. I've heard he did really well last night. I haven't watched the Wednesday night debate yet because Wednesday is my D&D night, so I'll watch it at some point, because I'm going to do a debate roundup as probably the next quick step video. So, but I heard that Beto did very well. Or what? No, sorry, not Beto. What was it called? The other nameless white dude, Julian Castro. That guy did really well. Beto O'Rourke actually looked, from the description on CNN, Beto O'Rourke looked like he was apparently outclassed, didn't know policy very well, and basically like got embarrassed. So that's nice. So it was Julian Castro I was thinking of. Sorry, my brain is not 100% there. I've been pulling hours at work that are like making my brain not function. So yeah, so that doesn't answer the question though. Is Beto O'Rourke a centrist? Beto O'Rourke being called a centrist is weird to Christie and other liberals. How would you explain Beto's political position? I don't know. Like, the thing is, for like people like I don't actually know Beto's freaking positions these days. Except that he's like fairly right wing. But the thing is like, I would even argue that like the term centrist is a little like it's another one of those things, and we've talked about this on the stream before, that a lot of what in America is called centrists would be called conservatives in other countries. Like, in my mind, what would be called a centrist in America, like a Beto O'Rourke or a Cory Booker, would be considered a Tory in Canada. Maybe even farther than the Tories, because most Tories would not privatize healthcare. So they would be considered conservatives, or, like the right. And then what Americans call conservatives are like far right reactionaries bordering line on fascists. So like, I would consider like the comparison here is with Christy Winters. I would think Christy Winters is a conservative. She defines herself as a liberal, and she has socially non-grotesque opinions about gender and race and stuff, but she supports always right-wing candidates, so it's like, okay, I guess you're a conservative. Okay, fine. Which is fine. I mean, it's not great, but whatever. Anyways, so what I call Beto O'Rourke a centrist, in the American sense, yes, but in the global sense, no, I'd call him a conservative. I think there's only, out of everybody who is participating in the debates, I would say that only one, maybe two of the Democrats are considered left of center. Because really, the left-right divide is whether or not you think capitalism is a positive force in the world. And I think that there's only one candidate running for president right now who has actively said that capitalism is a negative force in the world. maybe two if I haven't followed too closely the campaign of Mike Gravel because he has no support whatsoever, but maybe him, but I haven't heard. Maybe Tulsi Gabbard. I don't know if Tulsi Gabbard has. I don't know about the socialist cred of Tulsi Gabbard. She's pretty good on a lot of things, but I haven't seen her. I haven't followed her campaign because she's kind of been in the background. Okay. So that's that question. Argos Panoptes wants to know, what is Step Back today? Okay, the chat's distracting me. What is Step Back today? So, one of the things I promised to everybody that when I decided that Step Back that I was going to do Step Back full time, was that my not having to work at the office during work days meant that I could do a stream that is European friendly. So I used to do a stream that was called the Countdown stream, where I would stream for the 2 hours leading up to a new Quick Step coming out. But I'm thinking that I might, I've been like looking at some stuff, and people are starting to think that having the regular rotation and having that ritual based consumption might not be as like super important compared to like a different compared to making things better and having them come out when they come out. Which I thought, hey, I can do that for my Step Back videos. I can also do it for the Quick Step videos. Which meant that if that happens, if I need to like take another day or something like that to make the Quick Step better, then that probably means, but I don't want to like give up on the stream, because people do, since they're live, people plan their week around the stream. We learned this because on a couple of occasions when I've had to either delay a stream by a little bit or I had to cancel one, like I get lots of messages about how people's entire night got disrupted because I didn't do the stream. And that's rough. That's really rough. And I don't want to do that to people if I can avoid it. So instead of having a countdown stream that's contingent on a Quick Step coming out at the end, just in case a Quick Step doesn't come out, I'll make Step Back today, and I'll add an extra hour to the stream. So it's going to be a 2-hour stream from noon till 2 Eastern time on Mondays, with the exception of Canadian holidays. And Ariel Fernandez, welcome back. Thank you very much for the $5 super chat. You are a good, you are a great American Floridian Cuban. Hello, what's up? What's up, Ariel? Anyway, comrade, I have a question. Have you heard of a song called The Commonwealth of Toil? Yes or no? Tristan has not heard of a song called The Commonwealth of Toil. I'm very sorry. I disappoint yet again. My leftist cred goes away one little bit at a time. Oh man, my back is itchy. I was supposed to get a tattoo like a week and a bit ago on my back, and so we shaved my back to do it. And then I got canceled on less than an hour before the time I was supposed to get my tattoo. And now my back hair is growing back and it's itchy. There's your TMI for the night. Today my mother said, I don't think it's always fair to let people who used to be men compete against women. How should you respond to a comment like that from a friend/family? I mean, like, I don't even know how to unpack that. You'd have to really first of all, the statement is bigoted and wrong. But like, I guess, okay, there's one way you can say this, which is that which aspect of the, like, okay, reset. One of the things that we need to acknowledge is that sex, biological sex, is also not a binary. I know. And if you're going to start drawing these lines, like, is it fair to let women who used to be men compete in, like, women's sports competitions? Then, like, are you going to allow women who have testes instead of where their ovaries should be, which gives them testosterone, which will give them some of the quote-unquote unfair male, like, you know, male hormonal balance, should they be disqualified because they have just, like, a small biological difference from other women? Should women who are XXY, who also, should they have this sort of thing? Like, where's the line that you draw? And in my mind, the line is so blurry and weird that it's really, like, there's no point in, like, trying to make that, I don't know, just trying to make that, force that to work. It's not a binary. Never has been. We just try to force it to be. Ariel Fernandez, okay, hey, has anyone heard of that song? Let's see what the chat says. Okay. So that'd be my answer, is to just break down that sex is complicated too. You not only, like, if you were to define what is male and what is female, like, you very quickly get into murky territory. Like some people would say genitals, but genitals don't necessarily match genetics. If you say genetics, there's a whole lot of genetics you can get into. There's not just XX and XY people, but there's XXY and XYY, and I think there sometimes are YY chromosome people. I think that they have, I don't know if they live very long, but there's like a whole range of genetics, 23rd chromosomes. And then on top of that, that is a completely different conversation to, like, how your body reacts to sex hormones and how your body, like what primary and secondary sex characteristics you manifest. All of this is very open to different things. That's why you have so much variety in humans. Like, do you really think that a 90-pound woman and a 90-pound man are going to compete any different? And do you think that a 90-pound trans woman and a 90-pound cis woman are going to compete any different? Like, honestly, it makes more sense to me for, like, sports and stuff to do, like, weight classes rather than using something that is so bad at predicting biological capacity like gender, which is something that we sort of imposed, making extremely making hard categories between an extremely large and diverse set of different characteristics. Okay. You should answer the next question in Spanish only, a la O'Rourke. Oh boy. You don't want to see that. Have you been to Humboldt County, California? Let's find out. Let's see where Humboldt County, California is, and I will tell you if I have been there. Nope. I have no. It's in Northern California. I've been nowhere near Northern California. My Californian experience is really just Los Angeles. Is that an anarchist flag behind you? Well, thank you for the $2, Ariel Fernandez. And yes, it is. I bought it several years ago, and I when we were setting up for a Saint Jean Baptiste party, I found this flag in my old flag collection, and I forgot about how much I liked it, so I hung it up. Do you think people got tired of Trump news? Haven't seen any headlines about him recently. Like, this week he, like, almost, like, started a war with Iran and then just, like, took it back at the last second. I feel like, Trump is still big news. I mean, people are kind of, I feel like people cover a lot of his, like, really weird, everyday stuff, but, like, it's hard for the news to cover the big, like, the just unending parade of just breaking norms and breaking the law, and like he does a thing that will more or less would have gotten any other president impeached about every week, which shocks our system, but it's been happening so much that, like, we're numb to it, and it's like, I wonder, I don't even know, we're so addicted to it that we miss the... What are you doing, Phoebes? That lawyer that's arguing it's okay for ICE to put children in concentration camps with no soap, toothpaste, or even beds. Is it ever okay to condemn a lawyer because of their client? Yes. I mean, lawyers are never forced to take on their clients. They can say no. And so a lawyer can say, yeah, like a lawyer that actually, like, takes on that case has, I have issues with. About ideas about the conspiracy theory that the Donald was left open by Reddit as part of an FBI request to keep track of extremists. I don't think that's true. I think that the Donald was left open by Reddit as part of a Reddit attempt to keep making money, because I don't know if you've noticed, but for a lot of the internet, catering to the far right is good business. Hence why YouTube can't seem to ban even the, most extreme cases of obvious bigotry. Like, they can't ban Steven Crowder. They can't even ban Black Pigeon Speaks permanently. Like, if they can't do that, then, like, Reddit is in a very similar story. I would argue that Reddit has an even more, like, hard far-right viewer base. And so that's probably the reason why they couldn't just ban the Donald. And on top of that, from the talk I've had with people inside Silicon Valley, the people in Silicon Valley are so afraid of the bad press that would make people think that X platform hates conservatives, that they will go to extreme lengths and let the most, like, horrible bigotry and, like, literal Nazis thrive on their platforms just so that they can avoid bad press. Like Twitter, for example. Twitter more or less said that they're not going to ban Nazis because any algorithm they design to ban Nazis accidentally bans Republicans, or the occasional Republican politician, which would get spun into an anti Twitter conservative outrage. Another example, which would lead to, Twitter's stock going down. Another example would be YouTube. I have talked with people who work at YouTube who have said that everyone in YouTube hates Sargon of Akkad, and that, they would all, like, they have all said that if it was their last day at the office, that they would ban him. Like, kind of like if you remember that one time on Twitter where there was some employee's last day and they used it to ban Donald Trump for like an hour. So that's kind of the way that was pitched, and so they don't want the negative press, because if they ban Sargon of Akkad, they're going to get harassed. They're going to probably get DDoS, although it would be hard to DDoS Google, and there will be press stories about how YouTube censors conservatives just because they support Nazi conspiracy theories. You know. Ariel Fernandez, thank you again for another super chat. Okay, forget the other questions in the chat for a moment. Here's an important question. What's the best ice cream flavor, vanilla or chocolate? I'm a vanilla guy myself. I'm actually, like, not crazy about chocolate, but, you know, they're all good. It's not like I hate chocolate. It's just, like, if I was offered chocolate ice cream, I would not be like, screw that. I'll take it. Just if I had the choice. I would never be like, man, I could really go for some chocolate ice cream over this vanilla stuff. And then Gad Uriv comes in with the winner, saying that incorrect, the best flavor of ice cream is pistachio. I don't think anyone on the left is asking for an algorithm to ban Nazis. We are asking for human oversight to ban Nazis. Yes, Garrett, I do agree. That's not the way that they're going to solve it. And I know, getting Twitter to do something like that would be tough. I agree that would be the solution that works, but is that the solution we're going to get? Okay. Reclam ideas. Oh, that we already did that one. Bernie likes to invoke the name of FDR. Wasn't he quite a white supremacist? He was a Democrat in the 20s to 40s. The New Deal wasn't the same for white as well as blacks. Definitely. I would say that he wasn't so much a So FDR wasn't a white supremacist in like the way that like President Wilson was. Like, okay. So this comes to a thing about the Democrats in the 20th century that you have to kind of think about, which is that the Democrats in the first half of the 20th century had a very different constituency base than they have today. And this will sound really weird to you, so hang on. The Democratic Party was made up primarily of black people in the South and immigrant and like underprivileged groups in the North, i.e. black people in the North, Catholics, Italian immigrants, Irish immigrants, Jewish immigrants, like those groups, and white supremacists in the South. And so there was this weird time where to be a Democrat was to try and make common cause between literally black people in the South and the literal Ku Klux Klan. This is the Democratic Party of FDR. It's also the Democratic Party that frickin' John F. Kennedy had to ride. It really wasn't broken apart until Lyndon B. Johnson. FDR, to like get into like FDR's racial politics, like for sure he was he would be considered by modern day equivalents like a racist. And yes, a lot of his New Deal programs were definitely designed to help white people way more than they helped people of color. That's like for sure. But I think that the way that Sanders invokes the name of FDR, and like, let's be fair, FDR put in a lot of programs which, while they might have been designed for white people, they ended up helping people of color in immeasurable ways. Like, people of color have benefited from Social Security. They've benefited from, well, there's some other programs that with Lyndon Johnson, but like Medicare and Medicaid as the 60s. But like, these FDR as a building of institutions that are some of the lifeblood of what little safety net the United States has. I think that's the legacy that Bernie's trying to tap into. And that brings up an interesting question. Like, do you have to like take everything good and bad of a historical figure if you want to idealize or invoke their memory on something, which that could be rough, because then you have to talk about Martin Luther King's, burying the fact that he had a gay person working for him, and he went to pretty far lengths to make sure that very important black rights activist in the 1950s and 60s was never allowed to be in public. Because he was gay. And also that he cheated on his wife. Like, you have to... I don't know. I don't have an answer to that question. But I think that I am perfectly for the way that Sanders is invoking FDR in the case that he is in this campaign, which is the fact that there are a lot of people, like, one of the things that Sanders is trying to do is normalize the idea of government can do things, and even the tenets of what he calls democratic socialism, but really is social democracy. Which I'm fine with, because I just want to... Whatever normalizes socialism away from its popular concept in America, which is bad thing that is bad, is good to me. But the invocation of FDR, like, look, public health care was totally a thing that FDR would have done if he had been president longer. And, like, FDR did the New Deal to get the economy back. And, like, all these things. And I feel like a lot of these things that neoliberalism has spent 40 years and had 3 generations completely think is extreme and impossible is now completely normal. And I think that's really good. I think that we need to kind of combat the things go. We're getting some pushback on the thing. It's not socialism normalizing, but it is the word being slapped onto everything. Garrett, I would just say to that, my response to that would be, hey, one step at a time. Going from socialism being like the pod people from space that are literally here to ruin everything and bring tyranny and death and destruction on everybody, to like a mild form of social democracy is a huge step. And as soon as that is what people think socialism is, then you can go even further. But really, you gotta walk, people. Like, we don't live in a binary society where you can go from a hyper-capitalist neoliberal hellscape to communist utopia overnight. You gotta, like, it's consciousness raising. It's introducing the idea, and in my mind, changing the semiotics around socialism is a step forward. It's cultural Marxism in the best way possible. And so, honestly, if somebody who believes in like some basic social services for American citizens that would make their lives a lot better and call that socialism, I think most people would love for people to associate socialism with implementing government programs to make things better. And then, you know, when we're at that point, when America is a social democracy and calls itself socialist, then it's very easy for people to go, hey, buddy, I got this book about bread. You want to read it? And all of a sudden things change. Okay. Would it be problematic to jokingly say Tulsi Gabbard would be a PILF? That came to me days ago. I'm not sure if it's okay to say or not. I mean, yeah, it's kind of just reducing it's kind of reducing Tulsi Gabbard to whether or not she's bangable, which is extremely demeaning and very disrespectful. So I would probably not want to do that one. Where are we going? Oh, under your Great Paris Commune video, I bought the book by Donnie Gluckstein through your Amazon link. Would you get money even if I bought the book used or from other sellers? Honestly, Some Random Geek, if you use that link, so if you use that link in the description to go to Amazon and then use it to buy literally anything, I get a commission. You don't have to buy the book. Like, honestly, I have seen somebody who used an Amazon link of mine and then used it to buy a bunch of sex toys, and I got a commission from that. So, yeah, all I'm getting paid for, really, is bringing you to the site and getting you to spend money. It's the grossest thing ever, but yeah, either way. So if you want to be really, really awesome, what you do is you take that link and then you make it your bookmark for Amazon.com in your browser bookmarks, and then every time you go to buy something, I get a commission. It's great. Okay. I mean, you don't have to do that. That's just like an example about how the Amazon affiliate program works. Hi from the UK. I appreciate you are in a completely uncharted waters politically, but I am curious, where do you see the Brexit crisis going? Well, Steve Keeler, when Brexit first happened, I came to two solutions, which were from the counterfactual political theorists who were imagining what would happen if the Quebec referendum had gone through. And the two options were that, one, the process would go really fast. Both sides would make major compromises in order to make sure that the process of Quebec, or in this case, the United Kingdom, leaving the Union would be as painless as possible for both parties. The other side would be that this would be a brutal and terrible situation, and that things would get so ugly that by the time they were actually in a position where they were leaving, that support for such a thing would have eroded so far that it would be unconscionable not to do a second referendum, which would then result in Quebec not leaving or Brexit not happening. I still think that those are the two long-term options for the UK. I know that right now the path that they're going down is sort of do other people send super chats in your life? Yes, Ariel. Not as many as you though, Ariel, or should I say George Soros? You were amazing. Sierra Smith, what is the history of crucifixion as a punishment? I don't know, honestly. That's a cool question. I don't actually have an idea. I don't know. I imagine it's very old, but I don't exactly know the history of it. It's older than the history I get into, that's for sure. Anyways, on the Brexit thing. So right now, the Conservative Party of the UK is fighting over who's going to be who's going to be Prime Minister and what sort of Brexit they're going to have. And for a while, it looked like Boris Johnson, who was for the kind of ugly Brexit I was talking about, was the person ahead. But then I heard that last week. Wasn't it last week that Boris Johnson got in the news because he basically was verbally abusing his wife or girlfriend or partner or whatever, and that that was making the British press? I don't know what happened after that though. Has that affected his numbers at all? If it hasn't, then yeah, Prime Minister Boris Johnson will be an unmitigated disaster for the UK. And I do say that the UK. There are two paths the UK can go down, and this is where I think that this is the way it's going to end up. They can go down the path of actually doing this Brexit thing, in which case I predict complete economic collapse for the United Kingdom, and probably the loss of everything except for England and Wales. I see Scotland leaving, I see Northern Ireland leaving, I even see the possibility of Gibraltar leaving. Or there's the other option, which is second referendum, and the UK forgets about this whole European Union thing like it was a bad dream. This whole Brexit thing was like a bad dream, and we can just go back to the way things were, maybe with the UK having a much lower stand in the European Union because they tried to leave. Either way, it's a lose-lose situation for the UK. And it's gonna be tough. It's gonna be not fun for anyone involved, and I would hope that what's his name? Jeremy Corbyn is the next prime minister sooner rather than later. That can at least cushion the kind of blow that's gonna take. What do you make of Beetlejuice having to go back to his city to deal with another police shooting? Beetlejuice? Oh, Buttigieg. Yeah, there's a lot. I really should, Buttigieg, I really should have, I think that I did disservice to the people of South Bend, Indiana, with the way that I talked about Pete Buttigieg, because, he has a real bad history with race. Like, I did not find out about this until after I had made the video, or else I would have included it. But like, yeah, the thing he did with the police chief did have some serious racial overtones, because South Bend, Indiana is 40% black, and they have a real bad problem with an almost all-white police force. And then they take down its first one of its first black police commissioners. And then on top of that, there was another shooting of an unarmed black man by a white cop. And when Buttigieg went back to talk and do things, before he went to the funeral of the person that the police officer murdered, he went and spoke to the police officers. Like, he did a police officer event before he went to the funeral. And like, yeah, it showed that like he had more priorities in like damage control than like pointing out the injustice of the police. And oh god, yeah, oh yeah, it was bad. It was bad. Pete Buttigieg has some he's like the Vox candidate, but he won't like talk about like all the real seedy shit that goes on. Oh god. I really should have grabbed that one. Why are the Yang Gang so toxic? I have a fear that Andrew Yang libertarian ideas are disguised as progressive is the future of the post-Trump era, right? Okay, so Andrew Yang. I haven't gotten to him in the things yet. I think it just comes to the fact that he takes a rather soft position on immigration, and then also try to get himself into the debates because of memes. And we know what kind of people who make memes who are not Comrade Jeb, who is awesome, but other people who make memes. There's a definite dark underbelly to it, and so yeah, Yang kind of cultivated an audience there. Do I have an super chat? I did answer C.R. Smith. I did answer your super chat about the history of crucifixion. I said I didn't know. I don't actually know much about the history of crucifixion. I know it goes back to the ancient Middle East, but I don't know how far back. And yeah, I did listen to a podcast where there was an interview with Andrew Yang with what the hell's that show called? Hassan, no, not Hassan. Oh gosh, what's it? Not Contextual. the hell is the name? I'm gonna look it up real quick because it's deconstructed with Mehdi Hassan. That's it. Mehdi Hassan's deconstructed, and he asked him about why he had so many Nazis in his fan base, and he really didn't have a good answer. So, how does it feel to quit your day job and become a full-time content creator? Terrifying. Being like having like I need to in order to be successful. It's like I was in a situation in which like Step Back was, I felt decaying because I really could only work on it on evenings and weekends. So this is like I'm doing it. I'm cutting off the mores a little before I'm ready. And so I'm going to have to learn how to make a lot of I'm going to have to grow Step Back pretty fast, or build up my freelance writing client base fast, or else things are going to get like, I have a few months, but I think that the challenge of that though, which I think I can do, is still scary. But I do have some big plans, so we'll see. When did the Arabs first become culturally and ethnically different from other Near East group? Where do Arabs come from? I believe that they primarily come from the Arabian Peninsula. The what you would call Arabic, like the language Arabic, I believe has its roots. I mean, it's an ancient Semitic language, but like the Arabian Peninsula and sort of the early expansion of the Islamic Empire is when Arabs became like this like sort of distinct group that pushed itself, because as the Arabic language, because of how Islam works with language and classical Arabic, a lot of Arabic speaking people mixed with the local population in different ways, which, like, you know, like in places like North Africa, they mix with like people like the Berbers and the Moors and things like that. And then in places like Anatolia, or not Anatolia, that's a bit too far north, but in places like Lebanon and stuff, there were like a lot, kind of like a Greek-ish type of people that got mixed with the Arabic-speaking people. But like, honestly, for the most part, there's a lot of it's not so much like they became distinct as in like they came to places and they sort of mesh with the population. And this is why I'm sure Gad will be able to tell you better than I can. If you go to any country in the Middle East, you'll know that like the way that they speak Arabic in all these different places is extremely different. And that but like that's how Arabic became kind of the lingua franca of what you're calling here the Near East. So really, it was the explosion of the Arabic language, which was tied to the growth of Islam. That's where it all comes from. How do you feel about republic-style government? It's still a government, which makes it not good. How do I get weed in Canada? I might go to Vancouver next month. There are stores. There are cannabis stores. It's different in every province, but if you Google cannabis stores Vancouver, you'll find a list of some. Or if you do like a Google Map search for cannabis in Vancouver, you'll find a store where you can go buy it. You'll have to show ID to go inside, but once you do, you should be able to get some. Thoughts on YouTube demonetization? People seem to think it's super important that YouTube can literally decide if a genre is growing or not. I think it's not great. I should probably answer the super chat. Hi, Ariel. Sorry. Thank you for the $5. I really appreciate it. Half of the chorus of the song, when the earth is owned by labor and there's joy and peace for the commonwealth of toil that this is to be. Well, that sounds like a nice song. I forget you're Canadian. Well, thank you, Ariel. I'm glad that I live in Canada. I wish I lived in Europe, but what can you... Actually, I don't know if I want to live in Europe because Europe's got all of those far-right Nazis. Well, I guess we're getting them too, so... Never mind. So people seem to think it's super important that YouTube can literally decide if a genre is growing or not. I don't think that's the case. I mean, there is... Okay, I will say this, and this is something about demonetization in general. It is definitely an important part of a healthy... It's a part of a balanced breakfast of YouTuber income. But demonetization, like the CPMs, the amount of money that YouTubers make via ads is so low that if you're the kind of YouTube channel that is able to pull in any significant amount of money through advertising, then you have a massive channel and you could definitely monetize through other means. I think that if anything, demonetization is going to be successful in pushing more people to use ad blockers and to support their favorite creators on Patreon, patreon.com/thatbackhistory. Because honestly, like if I were to tally up the income that I make for Step Back, number one source of money is Patreon. Number two is Super Chats. Then number three is ads. And number four is just people giving me money on PayPal at paypal.me/stepbackhistory. But I'm also still a relatively small YouTuber. If you're like, for example, the case of Steven Crowder when he got his channel demonetized, he didn't give a shit because people give him $100 a year, like $100 to be part of the Mug Club. And he's got like doesn't he have a podcast? His podcast probably gets massive brand deals. He probably gets sponsorships. He the if you were to look at the pie chart of a lot of these really successful YouTube channels, AdSense would be a very small section of it. My videos get demonetized all the time, but I agonize more over. Here, let me just find. We're gonna do a little trip to analytics lane. I'm going to find my most popular video that is not demonetized, and I'm going to tell you exactly how much money it's made. So, let's take a looky-loo. So I've gotten 14.8 million minutes of... Okay. So the top video for watch time is called The Truth About Native Americans Before Europeans Arrived. Let's see how much money this has made. Estimated revenue, $4.67... Oh, that's in the last 30 days. Sorry. Since uploaded, the video has made $398.78. This video was uploaded in February of 2016. So it's made under $400 Canadian since February of 2016. That is less than half of, well, that's not less than half of it. It's about a half of 1 month of Patreon. So what that means is if you really want a creator to stick around, and this is not just for me, although, you know, I wouldn't complain. But if you really like creators and you want to make sure they keep making stuff, then support them on Patreon or support them through Super Chats or PayPal, because it really helps a lot. It is really the only way that I can make this happen. And the fact that I can make a YouTube channel function on only 50,000 subscribers is mind-blowing. So, yeah, and by the way, that's my most popular video. Okay. So, I think that in some ways demonetization has been a little overblown in what impact it has. So I don't see it as having as big an impact as people think it does. It will have an impact, but it won't be huge. Because most YouTubers don't get any money because YouTube will only give you you'll only get a check from YouTube once a month if you made over $100 off AdSense that month. And they also don't monetize channels unless they have over 1,000 subscribers and like so many minutes of watch time. So in my mind, the time, like demonetization there's not really a point in a channel's history where AdSense revenue is going to be make or break for someone. How would you explain to American liberals, some which called themselves leftists, how most Democrats are right-wing? Oh, well, that's the thing. Like, I would just say to that, how does YouTube Premium factor into it? I'll answer that one later. I think Kelly's going to add that on the list. So okay. So how are most Democrats? How would you explain to American liberals that most Democrats are right-wing? You have to look, like, one of the things you have to really point out is that in America, the politics are all skewed, and that you'd point out that in the global sense, America is an extremely right-wing country, and that the divide between left and right is whether or not, because, like, really, if you think in America, what the American difference between left and right is convoluted. That I don't know. But the one about whether or not you are a liberal or a socialist, that's a pretty, because those are like the fundamental difference between left and right wing, then that's a way that you can explain to liberals. Like, if you're, like, in most countries, the social issue stuff is just whether or not you're a dick. It doesn't really have anything to do with the left-right spectrum. But whether or not you believe in the private ownership of the means of production, or that is somehow that is a good thing for society, that is really the thing that defines whether or not somebody is left wing. How do you feel about Dorothy Day? I feel like I vaguely recognize that name, but I don't know who it is. Are you a utilitarian? To a limited extent. I don't really. I think utilitarianism has some uses, but I think that to an extreme degree can get really gross. What's your favorite superhero? Also, have you read any books by Garth Ennis? Well, I haven't read any books by Garth Ennis, but my favorite superhero? Oh. I'm partial to Green Arrow. Not like the CW Green Arrow, but like Oliver Queen from the comics. For similar reasons, I'm rather partial to Hawkeye from the Avengers. So I obviously have a bow and arrow thing that I need to work out. It must be the Sagittarius in me or something. Can you explain Doug Ford? Yes, I can explain Doug Ford. Doug Ford was elected because after 12 years of the Liberal Party running Ontario and being extremely corrupt and extremely neoliberal and offering literally nothing to anyone, Doug Ford had name recognition and ran a campaign where he promised to dip into the third rail of Canadian conservative politics, which is going socially conservative. He basically campaigned as part of his thing of of erasing gay people from our sex ed curriculum, which got him a bunch of voters because this is turning into a new normal in Canadian politics lately. And on top of all of those things, the NDP had the opportunity to, because no one was super thrilled about Doug Ford, except in like the suburbs. But Doug Ford, the NDP, the New Democrats, the left-wing party in Ontario, kind of shit the bed in their campaigning because despite the fact that Doug Ford ran, they had a golden opportunity to form government, and they keep listening to these, because I know I worked for the NDP for a little bit. I volunteered for them. They still work on this. There's some political consultant they hire that still tells them to go on this like beveled edges, happy kindergarten teacher messaging that, you know, that we got like happy bubbly and we wanted fucking pissed and we didn't get it and people weren't incentivized. And if we had been able to get the left in America or in Ontario more fucking pissed, then I think that we would have Premier Horvath right now, and a lot of people's lives would be tangibly better. But that's why Doug Ford happened. And honestly, a lot of people are regretting it because Doug Ford now has like approval rating as low as Kathleen Wynne had at the end of her term. So after 12 years of Liberal government, where scandal after scandal after scandal, and 2 elections in a row where everyone's like, oh, this is the one where she's done, the Liberal Party could not get as low as Doug Ford got after a year. So who knows what it's going to be like when we get to 2022 and we have the next election. Can you be socialist and be a patriot? I don't think so. I don't think that that any form of love of nation is compatible with the socialist project. You have to be for all of humanity, or you're not exactly all that leftist, are you? If Mitch McConnell is still Senate Majority Leader, it won't matter who the next Democratic president is. I heard that statement on a podcast the other day. How would you respond to it? I mean, there's actually something pretty true to that. I definitely think the Democrats winning the Senate is, if the Democrats win the Senate in 2020, that would be as big a news as the Democrats winning the presidency. Because, ending Mitch McConnell's reign as Senate Majority Leader would upset the balance in one of the most amazing ways you can imagine. And so, because people are going to write, people probably already have written like books about Mitch McConnell and the way that he broke American politics. Mitch McConnell is like almost single-handedly responsible for the nightmare Congress right now. And so taking power away from him would be huge. Oh, there's the cat's back, I see. Thoughts on the writer D.H. Lawrence? His proto-fascism is bad, but I like his novels. I don't know who he is. Will you move to Vancouver and become a coastal elite? I am a coastal elite, just on the coast of Lake Ontario. And I'm not an elite because I don't make that much money. Stephen D.Q. I like this one more because it says it's Stephen D with a question, but I like Stephen D.Q. What do you think about the blizzard? No. What do you think about the UK being about to have Boris Johnson as PM? You guys are in for a wild ride, England. That's all I gotta say. I say England and maybe Wales specifically because I don't think there's gonna be much of a UK if Boris Johnson becomes Prime Minister. Which is funny because like Boris Johnson, this is the thing that people don't know much about Boris Johnson is that he like wrote a book on Winston Churchill and he like thinks that he's the next Winston Churchill, which is kind of true in the fact that he's like a racist buffoon, but you know, he thinks he's so much classier than he is, and that's why I think it's funny. Are you familiar at all with the Blaze TV, Glenn Beck's new platform? I've heard of it. I haven't seen anything about it, but Glenn Beck kind of sucks, so I imagine it sucks. Lawyers tend to justify them representing horrific clients because everyone should be entitled to representation. How would you respond to that? There's a difference between defending, like, destitute people and defending massive corporations or horrible branches of government. Yeah. I feel no compunction about the poor lawyer who has to step up to bat to get paid massive amounts of money to defend an evil corporation or an evil branch of the government. Like, come on. That's like making excuses for Kamala Harris doing the whole, like, we can't get rid of prison labor because then we'll lose or we can't, like, let people out of prison because then we'll lose a source of labor. Like, yeah. Is there such thing as Islamic fascism? Sure thing there is. Like, look at Saudi Arabia. It's a monarchy with Islamic tendencies, for sure. Yeah, Islam certainly has elements to it that could be abused to let a fascist dictator come to power. I would argue that al-Baghdadi, the former leader of ISIS, definitely was an Islamic fascist who abused, actually, because the people who made a lot of the religious decisions in ISIS were not Islamic scholars. They misunderstood and abused Quranic text to justify a fascist regime. So, yeah, totally is. I have a Seminole friend who argues for a Seminole nation ethno-state. I'm not sure how to respond. How would you respond? I just don't think that it's in my mind, I would just be like, that's not it, man. Like, the Seminole, like, there's a difference between indigenous people and settler colonial states engaging on a nation-to-nation level and then having an ethno-state. One thing I would say to your friend is the Seminole people would not claim tribal membership based on blood quantum. That is something that the Europeans impose on the Seminole people. It's about kinship groups and tribal affiliation, not about, like, what percentage indigenous you are. That's the kind of shit that, like, Elizabeth Warren got in trouble for. That's a way that the Europeans used to withdraw indigenous status for people. It's like saying, if I wasn't, you know, if my great-great-grandparents weren't born in Canada, I'm no longer Canadian. Like, being part of an indigenous nation, it's a nation. I don't know. And yes, the Seminoles were a multi-ethnic group that took away runaway slaves in northern Florida. That is a thing. But I would say the most convincing thing you could say to your friend is that don't let European ideas of blood quantum shape the path towards Seminole, like, justice for the Seminole people. Is the only good hero a sandwich? Yes, some random geek. I agree. We do not need heroes. Heroes are bad. Superheroes are fine, but regular heroes, no. Don't worship anybody. Culture, not genetics, basically. Well, not even that. Like, there is, like, the Seminole people and many of the sort of East Coast indigenous tribes of the United States are groups that see membership more through kinship, which means that you can like marry into the tribe, and that having familial relationships with people is part of being part of the tribe in the nation. And so it doesn't allow for it allows for, or sorry, like blood quantum, the European way, is like doesn't allow for things like adoption, which is a huge thing in North American indigenous cultures. It doesn't allow for like I said, affiliation through marriage, but also it lets people claim indigeneity who have none of these affiliations with the tribe anymore. Okay. Why is there tension between Canada and China again? One thing keeps leading to another, and it's hard to keep track of what sparked it in the first place. Huawei. That's basically it. Huawei. The tech company is in shit with the United States because they might be trading around the Iran sanctions. So when Ming, I can't remember her last name, but her name's Ming, when she's like a high-end corporate executive in Huawei, when she came to Canada on the behest of the United States, she was arrested. And basically, Canada's in a situation where the United States wants us to extradite her to America for the crimes of Huawei selling stuff in Iran, and China is like arresting and threatening to execute Canadians living in China if they don't return their national. That's basically it. David Graeber refuses to endorse any particular presidential candidate because he thinks that being an anarchist involves not telling others how to vote. What do you think about that? I think there's a good sentiment in that. I think David Graeber makes sense in that. I think that I would argue that electoralism as a tool, not as the end in and of itself, like you don't solve the world's problems with voting. But voting is a way to make things better than they are, even if it does legitimize the state or whatever. And that to refuse to do whatever you can to make things less shitty for some people is easy to do when you're, a white male professor. But, not everyone has the privilege of being that. That being said, I like David Graeber. He follows me on Twitter, and he has good opinions. So I'm sure he has a great rebuttal that I would probably find very fascinating. Bernie said in an interview that the police are an example of socialism because it's funded by taxes. Do you even think Bernie knows what socialism actually means? I think he does. I think that this is a very calculated and intentional plan. Like Bernie Sanders was like in the 80s going to the Soviet Union and like a critic of the Contras when that was really not popular. Like I think Sanders is a lot more socialist than people give him credit for. I just think that Sanders is intentionally on a campaign to even just get to the point, to even get America to the point where they think that the government doing basic things is okay. Because, like, that's where America is. And that's, like, I feel like he's trying to... He's being incrementalist, which, I would argue is not a good thing as a rule, but I would say that Sanders is kind of the only person who I think could do it right now, because, like, if we were to go like, hey, I want to run for president so I can smash the state and end capitalism once and for all and have the workers seize the means of production. Let's just say it's not going to get him a ton of delegates. And I would rather have a crypto-socialist president who has to say shitty things like that the police are socialism than like, you know, having a truly radical Bernie Sanders who no one's heard of. How are you, Tristan? Well, Pirate the Creator, I'm doing pretty well. Can one be a socialist and a patriot? I already answered that question. The answer is no. Have you been to any Pride? I've been to one in North Carolina a few years back, and I'm going to one in New York City in 3 days. Well, Pirate the Creator, I hope you have a lot of fun. I went to Pride last weekend, so the answer is yes. Why can't one still love their country but believe in a socialist economy? Eugene V. Debs, in my opinion, would be like that. I think that socialism is a inherently international project, and to try and create socialism just for your country doesn't solve the problem of capitalism. It just makes it so that your country will be in a capitalist system, and therefore you're still going to be incentivized to exploit those in other countries for your own benefit. It's socialism for all of us. And, like, honestly, I don't think that we should be too into trying to, like, love of country is, like, the kind of shit that led to fascism. Like, that's, like, the romantic period and, like, that kind of stuff. And it's, like, it's not healthy. Loving a country, like, countries aren't real. They're not a thing. You can't love a country. It will not love you back. Are working conditions for fast food staff better in the Scandinavian social democracies in the U.S., Canada, or UK? I'm pretty sure they are. I think they're definitely. I think that like service worker standards in U.S. and Canada are extremely low. Why do you think your Buttigieg video is doing bad on BreadTube? It was under 0 for days. Now it's just at 1. I think that happened with the Kamala Harris video too, and I think it just has to do with the fact that people upvote and downvote things on Reddit when they haven't watched the video. And so they probably saw it, thought it was a pro-Buttigieg video, didn't watch it, and so they just voted it down. They're probably like, what's this liberal shit doing on BreadTube? And then voted it down. So that's why I think it happened, because the videos on left-wing-ish people do really well. But that's my thought. What do you think of Thomas Paine? He was actually influential to Marx. I don't know a ton about Thomas Paine. He's a, what's it called? Wealth of Nations guy, right?
He had a lot of common sense.
Oh, common sense. And who's the freaking who's the Wealth of Nations person? It's like Wealth of Nations is Adam Smith. I got Adam Smith and Thomas Paine mixed up. You know, 18th century liberal philosophers. There's an argument that I would say, like, what's it called? There's an argument that I think Noam Chomsky put forward, that if you take the ideas of the power of individuality and the rejection of the authority of monarchists, that like was born out of like these like 18th century philosophers, that if you think about that and you take it to its logical extreme, you end up with anarchism, not like capitalism. And I think that there's something to that. Bernie said he's friends with Joe Biden in an interview. Do you really think he means that, or is it just politic for the high up in the Democratic Party to pretend like they like each other? Yeah, I think Bernie is on thin ice. He knows the Democrats all hate him and are looking to just jump on any tiny excuse to attack him. Case in point, the frickin' Vanity Fair piece that interpreted him saying some people are voting for Elizabeth Warren because they want to see a woman president. And the headline of that Vanity Fair piece was, Sanders thinks people are only voting for Elizabeth Warren because she has ovaries. And it's like, Like the corporate media is doing everything it can to try and delegitimize Bernie Sanders, and so he's playing it very safe. Not to mention Bernie Sanders has just never been a person who likes negative campaigning in general. Kind of got him in trouble in the 2016 election because he didn't do it until it was way too late. But yeah, I think it's just part of his personality. I'm a fan, but I disagree with you on almost everything. You explaining history through a lens that is contrary to my politics helps me keep me balanced. Thank you. Well, thanks, Full Monterey. I appreciate that that you have that sort of willingness to come out and play with us evil leftists. I'm glad you like it, and thank you very much for the 5 British pounds. Very much appreciated. Chip chop, bulldog. He can't take it back. He's already paid the money. Spot of tea, English breakfast. Top hat. Okay. Where are we? Okay. Where's the line between government and an assembly of representatives in an anarchist society? One has the monopoly on the use of force, and the other one doesn't. So one has an army of people, like literally, who will use deadly force to force you to do the things they want them to do, and one doesn't. That's really like my issue with states, is that states use violence and coercion to make you do the things they want you to do, while my mentality is like, I would like to not have that, and yet I would still like society to have institutions and be organized. And I think, maybe this is just wishful thinking, but I think that we can organize society and have powerful institutions and have strong, strong, well-organized, well-integrated, just societies that don't have armed high school dropouts with a racial superiority complex who go and murder people who don't follow their rules. It's just my theory. Oh, people really don't like this dirty British accent I do, huh? There was a D&D game where I did that accent for, I just brought that just accent came out of nowhere. But this was the accent I had for Max, the kobold sorcerer, who was a gigantic asshole. Oh yes. It also ruins my throat. Have you heard of Tropico? Yes, delicious orange juice. I think you're talking about the game where you play like a Caribbean dictator. Yes, I have heard of it. I haven't played it, but I have heard of it. Here is the fact. The right is more willing to take shady sponsors. Part of the reason why they grew so much. Definitely the right is more willing, is more profitable to capitalist people. And so, for example, like sponsors of podcasts and things like that are way more willing to sponsor right-wing demagogues than like left-wing podcasts or, left-wing YouTubers. It's about all I can say to that. 'Cause capitalism, like what's it called? The right are pro-capitalism, the left are not. And businesses do capitalism to live. And so of course they're going to support the right more than the left. And yeah, and in our society, that is a capitalist society, that means that they'll perform better. Do you speak French? Oui, chat noir. Je parle un peu de français. J'ai été de français pour 3 ans à la 2010 à 23. Je parlais en... oh gosh, conjugating that verb is getting difficult. My passé composé for parler is like losing. Je parle français j'ai étudié français à le programme J'explore. C'est un programme de le gouvernement du Canada. J'ai étudié pour un été à l'université, juste français toujours. All right. Okay. That's all the French I'll do. I'm probably can see the numbers just tanking as I said words in the language. Oh God, the French school verb flashbacks. Yeah, I don't have a Becherel on me right now, so I can't really conjugate perfectly. How does the YouTube Premium factor into it? So the way that YouTube Premium works is that if you have YouTube Red or YouTube Premium or whatever the fuck you call it, and you watch YouTube videos, there's like a pot of money that they give to everybody for YouTube Red, to creators for YouTube Red, and it's divvied out percentage-wise based on how much watch time they've gotten. So actually, yes, YouTube Premium does, like, when you watch videos with YouTube Premium, you do give money to creators, and it is higher than somebody who just watched and got an ad. So yeah, so still videos that even videos that are demonetized will make money through YouTube Red and YouTube Premium money. Should the U.S. implement a form of socialism, and if so, how? In my mind, should the U.S. implement a form of socialism? Yes, please. The world's largest democracy, or the world's largest economy, turning into a socialist state would do wonders for the world, especially one that's so imperial. How? I think that the United States at the moment needs a consciousness-raising effort to really exercise the Cold War from Americans' minds and soften them to the idea of what socialism means. And in my mind, then we're just a generation away from capitalism really collapsing. I mean, if you ask polls of people who are younger than Gen X, already show that people like socialism more than they like capitalism, and that's just going to grow. So I see that shift happening in maybe a generation or two. How do conservatives differ from American liberals then? American liberals would be considered conservatives, and what Americans call conservatives would be considered like the far right. Like a lot of the things that Republicans say would be not considered, like, not even like not polite politics in most countries, but not like polite people in most countries. Do you think that the Overton window in the future, say 10 to 20 years, will shift more towards social democracy or fascism? I think it's going to open in both directions. I hope that it closes on fascism soon as the kind of recent attempts to bring it back go down in flames. You know, that would be the preferable idea. But my hope is that as the window opens, it opens in both directions, and that might be a way for socialism to overtake liberalism as this natural is the way to run economy. You'd flip the switch, but would a large person off? You'd flip the switch, but would push the large person off the bridge. Oh, this is the what's it called? The trolley question. I don't know if I have an answer to that, honestly. Thoughts on the meme/joke culture of the right? If they get criticized, they're just joking. Yeah, there's a concept called Schrodinger's douchebag, which is where people will say more and more and more insanely racist things, or like, just really impolite things, and they use the fact that they're joking, or they will say it until they get called out, and then they'll say they're joking. There's a really great series, if you haven't watched it, Argos. I'm sure you have. I'm sure you're just as online and your brain is as full of holes as mine. That the Alt-Right Playbook by Innuendo Studios has a pretty good breakdown of how this works. I can't remember which one it is in the series. I think it's called The Card Says Moops. That one is a pretty good breakdown of how the meme joke culture of the right is not as what's it called? It's not as nihilistic as people think it is. Do you ever think the British monarchy will be abolished? And if so, what do you think will happen to the UK? I don't know what will happen to the UK, but I imagine that there's probably some... I thought this was less of a thing, but it sounds like there's a fair amount of scuttlebutt that when Queen Elizabeth dies, that there might just not be another queen or another king or whatever. Like there's a significant strain of thought that the monarchy will die with Queen Elizabeth, and while that might not be, I'm kind of skeptical that that's the case. I definitely think that Queen Elizabeth dying is going to open up the conversation about what to do about the British monarchy, and we'd be surprised what might come out of that. Okay. Can you talk about what we can do now? Being this is going to be my first time voting, I don't know, the best way to support the Democratic representative that isn't Biden. Yeah, find the candidate that you like the most. I would argue the most left-wing one. And support them until they're out of the race, then find the second most left-wing one. And keep doing that until there's only one left, and then try to back that one with whatever haphazard support you can throw together, just like in 2016. My hope is that it will be Bernie Sanders, and things will be very different if that happens. But I won't be super happy if it's not Sanders, but whatever. Do you own a Che Guevara shirt? No, I don't. How do cats clean from licking themselves? What's so special about cat tongues? Laura was here. Have you ever been licked by a cat? They have like sandpaper tongues. Their tongue is like literally a scraper for cleaning themselves. So that's how it works. Based on what the Republicans are doing in Oregon, is that something we'll have to worry about Trump and other Republicans doing? I don't know what the Republicans are doing in Oregon. What about Lakota, the Lakota National Independence, a Republic of Lakota proposal? Are you against that, or is it different than your position to the Seminole National Self-Determination? I'm perfectly fine if the Lakota people want to make their own state. It's just that I don't think they want. He was talking about an ethno-state, like. Gad, he's like talking about like a Seminole version of like Benjamin Netanyahu and the Likud type idea of what a state should, like what an ethno-state should be. I do not think that anybody should make a state that just says only people of one ethnic, like one racial ethnic group belong in it. I think that is bad no matter who does it. And I think even if it's the Seminole people, but I would totally, if the Lakota people said, hey, we want to manage our own affairs, have at it. All right. Today I visited a country estate's vast gardens. What would happen to such places in the communist future? I mean, probably preserved for historical purposes. I'm not the kind of communist who wants to like destroy all references to a oppressive past. I definitely think that things I definitely think that a socialist future needs beauty and public works to make life just a little bit better. Just that, you know, everyone would be able to see it, and you wouldn't have to pay to get in. Thoughts on electability? Overrated. People are using electability to sort of gaslight Democrats into thinking that they're all their own armchair. Like, the thing is, there's so many people who are supporting, like, Joe Biden, for example, because they think he's electable. And so, like, everyone's thinking, like, they're their own, you know, galaxy brain pundit. And they're like, I'm going to support Joe Biden. I don't agree with him, but I am convinced that that dumb rubes in Indiana will vote for him, and therefore we need to choose the most right-wing candidate. You don't think that the Democratic Party knows that, like, they don't know that? Like, they're doing this intentionally so that you will vote against your own interests. This is why you should resist that. And also, can't 2016 teach us anything? Like, if 2016 taught us is, like, conventional ideas of electability don't mean shit. When I was 10, I had this idea that learning French required memorizing all the words in a foreign language dictionary. What would you say to a kid who thinks that? I would say, one, you learn I would tell you about two things. One, Zipf's law, which is the idea that in any in language, but also in a whole lot of other things, like half of all words used in a language is just one word. And then the second most common word in the language is like a quarter of all the words used. And then it goes down half all the way down. And so I would say that if you wanted to speak French, if you can learn 2 words, you've already learned how to construct most sentences. And then also, what makes French complex is its verb tenses. But even then, it's a thing that has rules most of the time, and it's a thing you learn through practice, and that it's actually not as hard as it sounds. And honestly, the easiest way to learn a language is to not think about it in the terms of rules and things like that, but just sort of learning to just have conversations in it, even if you're just putting together basic sentences, and just letting your brain, which is very well primed for putting together language, sort of learn how to put the pieces together in its own way, which you eventually do. So I would say practice, remembering that you don't have to learn as many words as you think, and that a lot of the different words are just the same word getting transformed in ways that you can learn how to do. Let's see, where else? Yeah. Oh, and I would also add to that grammar is way more important than vocabulary. Young people like socialism. Do you not worry that might lead to a future where the bourgeoisie turn to authoritarianism to preserve capitalism in the face of mass opposition? You mean like right now? That's what Donald Trump is. What do you think? That's also what, like, this, like, rise of the far right is. Hopefully, we can realize that there was more of us than them, and we can get through that. What would happen to the Canadian currency in this situation? I'm not sure what that's a reference to. Thoughts on Vaush befriending the skeptics? Vaush, he's the person who made that shitty trans joke and is now... Okay, him befriending the skeptics doesn't surprise me at all. He sounds like he's just a shitty person. Debate predictions for tonight. My prediction for tonight is that everybody is going... I'm trying to think what the pack is tonight. There's going to be a bunch of centrists who are going... Like, Joe Biden is going to be the target. A lot of people are going to criticize Joe Biden. There's going to be a lot... It's going to be like a lot of these debates where there's a lot of people. So when there's like 10 people debates and you only get 60 seconds to say things, the questions are sort of beside the fact. And what these candidates have are... They've been media training all day... Because when you're doing a debate, when you have a large field, you don't really get to respond to people or say things really. The only thing that you can really do is get one idea forward. And so what you're going to see is a lot of people are coming in with one powerful idea that they think sells their campaign, and they're going to try to find every single question and have it refer to that. That's sort of how the big 10-person debates goes. So that hopefully people will notice them in the big crowd and say things. When it comes to Sanders and Biden, Biden's going to take a lot of shots on the side. Probably Sanders will too. Biden is going to try and stay above the fray. He's probably going to take pot shots at Bernie Sanders because polls say that a lot of Bernie Sanders' second, or not a lot, but a significant chunk of Bernie Sanders' second choice voters or second choices are Joe Biden. I don't know who the hell those people are. But vice versa. And so I'm thinking that Biden and Sanders are going to go at each other quite a bit, and that everybody else is going to just try to get in to say one thing, and they're going to try to get one moment, like kind of like with Beto O'Rourke speaking Spanish, like they're going to try to get in and have one zinger that gets them on the news and maybe picks up their poll numbers a little bit. So that's what, and also because of the way that the questions are, there's probably not going to be a whole lot of there's probably not going to be a whole lot of questions for anyone who's not Sanders or Biden. They'll get the plurality of the questions, or at least they'll get more than anyone else. So that's how it's going to work. You don't really get into like once the debate field starts to go down, like once you start getting to like the later debates where the amount of candidates gets fewer and fewer, that's when we're going to start getting into things like they'll be training against their opponents, and they do a lot more debate prep. But this one, when it's this big, it's more of a just in 2 hours trying to get 10 people to outline their basic platforms. And unfortunately, the way that the Democratic debates work is they're going to go through the big hot button issues of the day that most Democrats already agree with. So what you're going to see is going to say like, hi, I'm Anderson Cooper. I make lots of money. I'm going to ask you a very important, hard-hitting question that the Democrats are going to struggle to answer. How do you feel about a woman's right to choose? And then they're all going to be like, I believe in a woman's right to choose. And you're going to hear that in 10 different variations as you go down the line, except you're going to have one person say, I believe in a woman's right to choose. I also love sniffing them. He won't say that, but that's basically what he's going to say. And then as they go down, they'll be saying, I believe in a woman's right to choose. And that's why we need to not support Joe Biden, who tried to do this. And then that'll be Sanders. And then as you go down, they'll be like, I believe in Planned Parenthood, and I think we should support Planned Parenthood however we go, which Sanders doesn't want to do because he wants to replace Planned Parenthood, which everyone loves, and he's going to take it away and replace it with socialized health care. That's why Planned Parenthood hates him. And Joe Biden is also bad. And like that's like it's going to be just like they're all just going to like try and like jump all over themselves to get a jab in at the person who's higher up on the food chain. Gosh, that was a lot of things. Speaking of which, it starts in like 10 minutes, so I should start answering his questions faster. Thoughts on Che Guevara then? I don't have many thoughts on him. I think I should make a video on him at some point. I really should. I feel like I just want to like take an excuse to take a bath in like the era of 20th century communist revolutionaries in Latin America and such. It'd be fun. What's the difference between bodily autonomy and the libertarian idea of self-ownership? One believes that people belong to themselves and are not things, and one believes that you are a thing, but you own you, and so you can sell you. What do we do with money? Chuck it in the garbage. Waste of resources. We were having this debate in the comments. Why can't the Palestinians expel Jewish settlers? Can't the Seminole and Lakota expel white settlers? What's the difference? It's a matter of time. It's a difference between like there are Palestinians alive right now who've had their land expropriated so that someone could build an illegal settlement on top of them. The Lakota people, for example, have claims from the 19th century. Now, there are some claims that are more recent, but it's still a bit further off. And I think that the function of time does have an impact. And also the Palestinian settlement of, the Israeli settlement of Palestinian territory is a thing that is happening and pushing forward right now, while the taking of indigenous territory is a historical injustice that needs to be undone. That's the difference. Thoughts on Juche? I don't think it's good. Obviously, when you get your nationalism and communism is not good. Not a good mix. It's like lamb and, or it's like, what's it called? It's like chocolate and tuna fish. No, it's like chocolate and shit. Because tuna fish is delicious. And nationalism is shit. Okay. All right. Let's see. There's more of us than them. They have all the guns. Yeah, but it's not necessarily a thing about war and destruction. I think that there's a... We're not at the point... I think it absolutely is the time, you know... Sorry, Kelly decided to start watching the debate without me. All right. I'm going to wrap up these last two questions, and I'm going to call it a night. This is obviously Kelly signaling. There's more of us than what if they have all the guns? I think that I don't think we're at that point yet. I think that we can get that. We can get past that. Who do you think might drop out soon? I think that anybody who's in single digits who doesn't have a really significant performance at the Democratic debate, especially because I think that there's another debate happening in late July. And if the Democrats and the threshold for getting into that debate is much higher than the one right now. So my thought is, if they don't look like they're going to make the poll threshold to get into the next debate, they're probably going to start they're probably going to start dropping out because basically because they're going to start losing donors, and campaigns thrive on money. All right, last question. Does Canada have a constitution? Yes, it does. It's called the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and it has been around since 1981. I know because I work for a until tomorrow anyway, I work for a civil liberties organization that is about defending the Canadian Constitution against state incursion. And are you streaming on Tuesday night? Yes, I am. This is just a one-time thing because of Thought Slime's birthday. All right, everybody. This has been real. I'm going to go watch the debate so I can do a quick step about it. So you guys, if you want to follow along with that, I'll probably be live tweeting it on Twitter. So if you go to Tristan PJ on Twitter, I'll be tweeting some stuff about the debate. It's going to be ridiculous. It's going to be silly. We're going to get some memes. It'll be great. This is like the actual campaign starting, so we'll see where this goes. Anyways, friends, you guys are great. Thank you all.